All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Iris is ready for this. Okay, here we go. Let me just pan the crowd over here. Say hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Don't forget to get the people in the bleachers.
All you fellows down on the other side of the world over there.
We get a chant them, right?
We see you, Patty. Good morning there, Joe, Mel,
Hello.
and June. We've got June in November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Irish is blue.
That's right.
One of my favorite ones. That and
Yeah.
one thing on yours. I know you. I just love it.
It's a beautiful time of the year.
I love all.
Daylight's long.
It's too hot outside by that point. But, this is
June is
my
hot
weather
here.
is right here. All right.
Okay.
I like when everything's.
So we began this discourse, we began this essay by talking about the days of Hanukkah are compared to the days of Sukkot. And what would be the connection between Hanukkah and Sukkot other than the 8 days? Why do they both have 8 days? And why are there eight branches in the menorah of Hanukkah when it's supposed to be a remembrance to the menorah in the temple, which had 7 branches? Also, why are the candles of the menorah kindled in the evening, when it gets dark, unlike the ones in the temple that were lit when it was still light? And the idea here is that the candles of the menorah, the candles or the lights, the illumination of the menorah, of the Hanukkah, is in order to illuminate the darkness. And then he gets into what darkness is. We discuss this at great length, that the darkness that was facing the Jewish people during the time of Hanukkah was provided by the Greeks. The Greeks, the Syrian Greeks, were unique in their insistence against the Jewish people. Whereas we are familiar with the Egyptians that tried to enslave the people and murdered the babies and tried to stop and tide this growth. We are familiar with the story of Purim when the Persians, Haman and all the rest, tried to murder the Jewish people, men, women, and children, all in one day. We are familiar with the protection of God in the desert for the Jewish people who were traveling in the desert, and other times throughout the year, during which we celebrate the saving of the Jewish people. You know the famous joke. The Jewish holiday is they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's how it is. In Hanukkah, there's no let's eat. Oh yeah, we have some foods that are traditional, like we have the latkes and we have the donuts, but those are finger food, dessert type of food. They're not meals. On Purim, it is a requirement in the book of Esther to eat a meal. That means to wash your hands for bread, have meat, have the meal of Purim. And there's a meal on Passover called the Seder, 2 Seders, and the rest of the meals. And on Sukkot, you must eat a meal in the Sukkah. And Rosh Hashanah, so we must have a meal to celebrate. Yom Kippur, before and after, you must have meals. We celebrate everything with a proper, full-fledged meal. Wash your hands, have the meal. Hanukkah does not do that. Hanukkah says, it's true, we have some oil stuff, so fry it in oil and eat it. That's not considered a meal. That's snacks, and by the way, it's quite filling, it's quite fattening, and it's quite delicious, but it's not quite a meal. Huh?
That's my
Favorite. Get some sour cream, get some latkes, and get some calories. And it's great. Applesauce, or whatever rocks your boat. But it's not a meal. There's no sit-down dinner. You're going to eat something during the 8 days. You might sit down for a dinner, but there's no requirement for a dinner. It's the only holiday that does not focus on food. And the foods that we have vary. Those from the Middle Eastern countries, they have donuts. They had lots of flour. Those from the Eastern European countries, they have potatoes. So we have latkes. potato latkes. But it's not a meal. And this is because of the nature of the holiday and the nature of if you look at the problem, we find out what the solution was. And the problem is in the daily prayers of Hanukkah and in the benching and the grace after meals that we say on Hanukkah, which is that they wanted to make us, we say to God, they wanted to make us forget your Torah, forget your commandments. That means they weren't necessarily interested in making the Jewish people forget about the Torah or forget about the commandments of the Torah. What their focus was to make the Jewish people forget about your Torah, the godliness, the divinity of the Torah. And the Rebbe went into a further depth in this, because the word that is used is chukei retzonecha, the statutes of your will. That's what we say in the prayer. Statutes means mitzvahs, commandments that do not come with a reason, with a logical reason. The truth is, even if it's logical, it's still godly. But that which is not even logical in the Torah indicates a tremendous divinity, and that's the only reason why you do it. Like, don't eat not kosher meat. Why does not kosher meat be unacceptable? Only kosher meat can make you holy? Yes. Why? There's no reason. And your desire, your will is a deeper essence, an element of godliness. That's what they were trying to eradicate and to eliminate. The divinity of Torah. Which is why they didn't destroy the temple. They weren't looking to destroy the temple. The temple was beautiful, ornate, gorgeous, had gold and silver, beautiful. Why destroy it? Just get rid of that menorah. What do you have light for? You don't need that light. And so they didn't destroy the oil. They just defiled it. They contaminated it. They broke the seal. That's all. It's not that they didn't want that menorah lit with this special kind of oil. What's special about the oil? Oh, it's pure. What's purity? What is that? Those concepts don't exist in the Greek and the Syrio-Greco philosophy. It's all about body. It's all about physicality, materialism. No, they love the culture. They love the fact that there's a family time in Judaism, very, very much in there. They love the fact that you are that we are civil to one another, and that we eat falafel and we have Israeli dances and we speak Ivrit and it sounds cool. That they loved. They did not care for the divinity, the godliness that is prevalent throughout the Torah. They wanted to eliminate that godliness. And so, what is oil? Oil represents the highest level, doesn't mix with any other liquids. You pour it in, it rises always to the top. You can always see the film of oil on top of liquids, representing something removed, something transcendent. They didn't care for that, so they went and defiled the oil. And as we went through the whole idea. So now we come to the point where we can understand what's the significance of the Hanukkah celebration. The Hanukkah celebration celebrates 8. This is what we discussed last week and the week before, because 8 is a number that is a transcendent number. When you have 7, 7 is the days of the week. That number God chose as a week and a week and a week and a week that doesn't care about any other calculation. We discussed this at the beginning of the class, that when you think about a week, it's the one thing that doesn't fit into the second, or to the minute, or to the hour, or to the day, or to the month, or to the year. In other words, you can have New Year's Day on any day of the week, because it doesn't care. The week doesn't care about where things land. Every 7th day is another end of a week. That's just how it goes. And number 7 doesn't fit into the 365. There's a remainder all the time. So it's always going to be different. So why have the 7 days of the week? Why won't we have 5 days? It would make more mathematical sense. Or maybe 8 days. Give us 2, 3, 4 weekends, days. Why not do that? In fact, the communists at one point tried to do that and change the days of the week. It was woefully unsuccessful. China tried to do that at some point to make it fit, to conform. But the week doesn't conform because God created the world in 7 days. The only reason why there's 7 days to a week is because God made that happen. It's not like Sunday this happens and Monday that happens. Yeah, May this happens, June that happens, and in November this happens. But none of the days of the week doesn't change this.
Mhm.
Yet everyone just follows a 7-day week because that's how God made this world. Why? Because of the 7 attributes that we discussed in the previous book and so on. But 7 days of the week are godly. And that represents a natural, normal, routine type of activity. You start on Sunday and you end on Shabbos. And then you start again on Sunday and you end on Shabbos. And so many of the things in Judaism have a 7 to it, because 7 is the completion of the natural event. But Hanukkah goes above that. Hanukkah represents transcendence. It represents that divinity that does not conform to the materialism. It's materialism that needs to conform to it. Hanukkah represents the oil, which is transcendent. It sits on top of the liquid. And therefore the menorah has 8 days. 8 branches, and Hanukkah has 8 days to it, because it's not a natural holiday where things may have happened within the nation. This is something that the Greeks came to fight. They came to say, we don't want this. It all came to a head in the history when up in a village in northern Israel, where I will be at the last day of Hanukkah, they came into a village and they were getting ready to offer. They erected an altar and offered a pig on that altar. What they were saying was, what's the difference between a pig and a sheep or a cow? And that's when Matisyahu, no, not that Matisyahu, the other Matisyahu, and his 5 sons, whose names were Eliezer, Elazar, Yochanan, Yonatan, and Shimon. That's 5 sons. They decided enough is enough, and they're going to stand up for the divinity of Judaism. That is represented by number 8, a transcendent level, which is why when the Mashiach comes, it says that there will be a harp in the temple, which will not be of 7 strands, but of 8 strands. What does 8 represent? Transcendent. And the word harp in Hebrew has God's name in it, it has candle in it, it has soul in it, in the gematria, in the numerical equivalence of that 4-letter word, which ends up representing God. So there's 8, a transcendent level of godliness, which is what the Mashiach comes to introduce to this world, a level with God in his not regular, routine way, which is what we have now, but that the whole world will be privy to a revelation of godliness like never before, as the prophets say on and on and on. That's the 8th strand harp, or the transcendent level of godliness that is projected into this world.
Is it 7 though, like the note, like what would be the 8th note?
There's 8 notes in an octave.
Huh?
There are 8 notes in an octave.
So how does the harp come in the 7?
Because it doesn't need the extra C, okay? The way because
I
they
don't
let you
understand.
go, you're back to the,
That's all.
And one more thing is that's why this war took a tremendous sacrifice. It wasn't just simply a war where people could have gotten prepared. This was a small ragtag band of unprepared Jewish soldiers who were basically rabbis and leaders, but they weren't military men. They weren't trained for all of this, and they took on an army, a Greek army that was prepared and ready and trained, and they won. They won this because it requires something deeper from a place that's more transcendent to combat this type of war, a war that is not based on killing people out of hatred or out of conquering, but out of ideology. So the ideology has to be fueled by something deeper, by something that comes from the deepest place of a person, and that is the self-sacrifice. And we spoke at length about Daniel Pearl That's where that came in, because the man did not live on any level like an observant Jew. But when it came time, when they pushed in the end, when there was a knife to his throat, literally a sword to his throat, and his time was up, and they said, "What are you?" And he said, "I'm a Jew. I was born a Jew, and I'll die a Jew." That is a declaration that comes from a transcendent spot within every single soul of every single Jew, where somehow, no matter what you've done, at the end of the time, when you're pushed to the wall and you're about to go, you find your essence, and that's what he declared, and that's how he left. Okay. So page 55. You know what? Let's go to 50. Yeah, 55. Right. Bottom of the page. This is also why the lamps of the Hanukkah, notice he never says the candles, because the best way of lighting a menorah is through olive oil, not through that. So candles would be not olive oil. Funny, I just bought now to be able to travel with oil that is congealed like a candle, but it's when you light it, it becomes liquid. Yeah. But it's congealed olive oil that I bought so I can go to Israel, put it in that thing. I don't have to worry about it. Put olive oil in the refrigerator, it congeals in the freezer.
No, that's not real freezer.
Well, it stays congealed out of the refrigerator.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
I might not have a refrigerator on the plane.
And you're gonna be gone for how many days for Hanukkah?
Just two.
Just
Just till the end of it. Okay.
Here it is.
Wow.
You could open.
Never seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's neat.
Okay.
Wow, look at that.
I bought candles like this.
Where did you buy them?
Candles.
Rabbi?
This
I
is-
bought
this is
candles
oil.
like that too. Where did you buy them, Rabbi?
In New York, when I was just in New York.
Oh, wow. Surely they should have them in Atlanta.
They might have this. I don't know if they have the gel, but they have these type of oil.
You're not gonna be using all of these.
Yeah, you will.
No, when he's traveling.
I have two boxes, one for me, one for Zalman. So while I'm here, we're gonna use the liquids, but once I leave,
Use it on the
Fabulous.
big menorah.
we might.
I don't know. I have nothing bigger right now. Really.
Okay.
You're not refrigerated, so, yeah.
No, they don't have to. They've added something to it.
Interesting.
Some kind of emulsifier.
But as soon as you light them, it becomes liquid immediately.
They added wicks.
Hmm?
They just-
Oh,
they
wicks.
added
I know Judy
I
had
don't
some.
know.
big one.
But no, it turns
Kind of
liquid
like a
immediately.
candle size.
There's wax in it. That's.
That's cool.
It's half and half probably. No, it's 10%. My guess.
There's your
Can I
answer.
order those?
Sure.
On the shipping?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going away.
it might be,
Got Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
that
So we need
website,
something.
the Judaica thing up in the bottom of our.
Right, look at our website.
Or
I had.
Dot org, Chabad.org?
Chabad
No.
South
And
Side.
you're,
Oh,
okay,
so it's in
There
your,
is a
it's in the
Judaica
store.
store.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
Okay. This is also why the lamps of Hanukkah are different from the lamps of the Beit Hamikdash, of the temple, in regard to their kindling time, i.e., why the mitzvah of Hanukkah, of the Hanukkah lights, begins when the sun sets, whereas in the temple, once the sun set, there was no further activity in the temple. The day finished, as far as offering and whatever else they were doing, 2.5 hours before the end of the day. Then the last 2.5 hours of the day, and 2.5 hours relative to the day. In other words, it wasn't 2.5 hours of 60 minutes, but 2.5 hours if you divided the day into 12 sections. So it could have been much less than 60 minutes per hour. But 2.5 units before the end of the day because, and then the rest of the time was used for cleanup and for accounting and tally and what was needed, what the cleanup. The mainly cleanup. There was a lot of mess there, and everything was put back into order. By the time the sun set, that place went shut down and opened about an hour or so before dawn, when all the priests had to be woken up and begin the day. So no matter what happened, when the sun set, there was nothing going on. That's when we begin. The menorah is best lit right before sunset, or some would say even after sunset, depending on which opinion you follow. You are permitted to light the menorah about an hour before the sun sets. So the sun sets here about in Hanukkah about 5:30 or so. So at 4:30 would be the absolute earliest. You light your menorah at 2 o'clock, you might as well light it on Rosh Hashanah. I mean, it will have no Hanukkah significance to it. It's like lighting the Shabbos candles. Once the sun sets on Friday, deadline is there, you cannot light the candles anymore, no matter what happens. You can't honor the Shabbos by not following what the Shabbos itself says in the Torah, which is don't kindle any fire on Shabbos. So we all light it before sunset. But the menorah has to be lit for after sunset, or right at sunset, and to last into the night. It's the night activity. Which is, by the way, very interesting, because no other holiday behaves that way either, except for Passover, the first 2 nights. After that, everything is by day. The prayers and the parties and whatever, it happens by day. Rosh Hashanah, you blow the shofar by day. On Sukkot, you do the thing by day. Full day. Purim is mainly the day.
What about the days of Hanukkah that fall on Shabbos?
So it's a very good question. And so on Friday, and there's always a Shabbos. There'll always be a Shabbos, sometimes 2. So on Friday, you first light the menorah in your house, then the Shabbos candles are lit. That brings in the Shabbos. And yes, you'll have to have it lasting a lot longer. The oil will have to last, because you can't light it after the sun sets. You have to make sure that it's lit within up to a half hour into the night. That's why these things burn for 3 or 4 hours, and not just a little candle that lasts for a half hour. If you're using candles, we need to use the thicker Shabbos candles for Hanukkah on the Friday, not those little thin colored candles, because they don't last long enough.
How long are they supposed to be?
A half hour into the night. Into the night. So the sun sets about 40 minutes before the night. Then the night comes, and then a half hour further.
When it's dark, so you can see the light.
Yes, it's in order to illuminate the darkness, right. And on Saturday evening, first you make Havdalah, which has its own candle to it, and then you light the menorah in your house. But then you don't have to worry about the extended time, because it's going to be night by the time you make Havdalah. It's after Shabbos. So Shabbos doesn't end until night, proper night, and it's 7 minutes after night falls as well. Okay. So it has to be lit when the sun sets. Page 56. For it is specifically through the revelation of the level of Yechida. The level of Yechida is that deepest level within the soul, corresponding to the pleasure, the deepest part within a person. So specifically through the revelation of that transcendent or deepest level that may be within the person, that transcends Hishtalshalut. Hishtalshalut is the chain, the regular, routine, normal way of things happening. This deepest level is above that, transcends that, or is deeper than the regular, routine, normal level. So when it's the revelation of that Yechida, that deepest level within the person, that one can illuminate the darkness. How do you get to illuminate the darkness? If it's really, really dark, you've got to find the real deepest element within the person. Like the Maccabees, who took on a well-prepared, well-oiled machine and did it because it came from the depths of their heart. Or Daniel Pearl. It comes from the essence. It's the revelation of the essence of the person that nothing can really distort that, and nothing can come in the way of that. It is not just that in the presence of this light, the darkness does not conceal, but the darkness itself is transformed to light. Not only does the darkness not cover or hide on anything, but it actually is transformed The darkness itself, the challenge itself, is the energy of that is transformed into light. So therefore, it has to happen at night, not like the temple with a menorah of 7 branches representing the height of the normal, regular routine, the completion of that, the ultimate of that. But this is above that. It transcends the regular routine level. That's what Hanukkah represents, a deepest level within the person, within the soul. This is also why the time for lighting the Hanukkah lights extends until the foot ceases from the market, until the feet of the Talmudai cease. The word is kalya. Okay, let's look at footnote 106. The Talmud states that the obligation to light the Hanukkah lamps begins at sunset and extends until the foot ceases from the market, until the feet of the Talmudai cease, approximately 30 minutes after sunset. To explain. The Hanukkah lamps are specifically intended to publicize the miracle of Hanukkah. To who? To those who pass by on the street. Originally, the menorahs were lit on the outside door of the house. In Israel today, most of the people do that. They have these special menorahs in glass cases or plastic or some kind of case. Some special stands, and outside of people live in these big apartment buildings. You have dozens of these outside of all buildings where they kindle the menorahs outside, or they may kindle them inside, but they carry them to the outside and leave them out there in order to illuminate the outside. The outside. The focus is on the outside. And this practice was stopped when the Jews were taken into exile, just a couple of hundred years after this Hanukkah, because that's all you need to attract more attention on the outside. So it was moved to the inside doorway. Some, after that, will light them in the window to publicize the miracle. In Chabad, we don't light them in the windows. We light them at the doorposts within the house still. But we don't stop blasting Hanukkah all over the place. We've got these menorah things on top of our cars and golf carts and so on, and make public lightings to the chagrin of some people who don't feel that drawing unnecessary attention to Judaism is not a good thing in America for some reason.
Anti-Semitism is alive and well here.
Oh, and the Hanukkah menorah is just going to make things
Worse.
Oh, really? You think so?
No.
It won't change that. Nothing's going to happen.
No.
And we have every year, Chabad puts big public menorahs all over the place, and we are about to do that here in Peachtree City, by the way, in front of City Hall this year.
Great.
And so
Hopefully.
we just need to put some finishing touches, as somebody wrote in the rabbi's message. But that's our goal for this year. And Hanukkah, if publicized properly, represents a victory of light over darkness. And anyone can take that message. That's a universal message, not necessarily a Jewish. It's a Jewish message to the world, because the purpose of the menorah is to light the world, the darkness of the world. But every year there are stories of Chabad menorahs somewhere being vandalized. Yeah, so you know what? You're gonna have vandalism everywhere you go. It's just a target, and that's what we are. Hiding behind it ain't gonna help. As I was telling my friends yesterday, was Kristallnacht, 75 years after Kristallnacht. Well, it didn't help that these people happened to marry German women or German men and spoke only German and refused to do anything Jewish and eat not kosher and have their synagogues ban yarmulkes and taluses and have services on Sunday, not on Saturday. Whatever they did to be like the rest of the world, it didn't help. It doesn't help to hide. So you might as well just blast it out there. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing has ever happened to any Chabad rabbi or Rebbitzin who has been out of the 4,500 of them who were there in New York, and the thousands more couldn't make it. Nothing has ever happened by the lighting of a public menorah lighting. And the contrary, people have been very inspired and moved and feel lit up. we don't put the menorah out at the windows. We do it in different. We publicize it more than any other group in the world, Chabad. But we don't do the actual physical lighting. It's a private thing inside of the house, at the doorposts of one of the rooms that people frequent. Probably do it in that doorpost, or whether they're there or somewhere around here. And the idea is to kindle, to light, to illuminate the darkness, the outside. So originally, when the Hanukkah was established, the menorahs were placed al petach beso mibachutz, on the outside door. And today in Israel, if you're not Chabad, most people would put them outside today, not at the window, but outside of your house. And it's really neat. You go there for sukkahs and you see every street you turn onto, there's sukkahs all over the place, on the floor, up the stairs, here, there, everywhere. And when you go Hanukkah, you see that as well. In Brooklyn, it's a little different because there's more privacy. There's more
But you
people
see
have more
these
backyards.
fire escapes,
Oh yeah,
Yeah, fire-
sukkahs is everywhere. Oh, everywhere you go, you'll see it. Yeah.
Fire marshals love that one.
Even in Tokar Hills, you'll see a collection of sukkahs. Anyway, so the bottom line is it's done on the outside. Now, hear what the Talmud says. So a fascinating idea here. In the second paragraph of the footnote 106. We'll start again. To explain. The Hanukkah lamps are specifically intended to publicize the miracle of Hanukkah to those who pass by on the street. So long as people remain on the street, one can fulfill his obligation to light the Hanukkah lamps. Once the streets become deserted, however, one can no longer fulfill his obligation to light the lamps and publicize the miracle. Which is one of the other reasons why Chabad does it inside, because as long as you're inside the house, people here up. If you're up on the middle of the night, you can publicize the miracle to people in the house. Now, as Rashi explains, commentary of Rashi, the Tarmudai were a people from Tarmud, that's a location, who would gather wood and sell it in the market for kindling. They would wait each night until everyone had gone home and had the chance to check if they needed wood for their fires. Those in need of wood returned to the market and purchased it from the Tarmudai. So they had the night shift, whereas most people closed up shop when darkness came. These people woke up when darkness came, and they were standing out there with extra wood for people who may not have realized that we need more wood. And wood is always necessary for cooking and for heating if it's freezing cold. Thus, as long as the Tarmudai remained in the market, there were people walking in the streets who could see the Hanukkah lamps, and one was obligated to light the lamps. Once the Tarmudai had left, however, the streets were deserted, and one was no longer able to light the Hanukkah lamps. The discourse proceeds to explain this in a deeper mystical light. In other words, when the Talmud is teaching us about the Talmud people from Talmud, you know what? There is no Talmud, and there is no people from Talmud anymore. So that,
Walmart's open 24 hours.
and today you can buy kindling wherever you want, or you can just flip a switch. And the Talmud is not usually just talking about a technical matter, but if it remains in the Talmud, it was there for Talmud, the greatest masterpiece of Judaism after the Bible, is giving it to us because we are trying to understand the elements of this festival of Hanukkah and the purpose of the kindling of the menorah. That's why it's given to us. So the Talmud people, or the people from Talmud and the marketplace people, is a code word for a better or a deeper understanding of the miracle of Hanukkah. What is it? So the Rebbe explains it here. Let's look again at the second paragraph. This is also why the time for lighting the Hanukkah lights extends until the foot or the people ceases from the market, until the feet of the Tarmudai cease. And the word that is used is kalya. Kalya means to end. Kala, the bride, has the same wording to it, and we'll soon see what else it means and why the bride is called a kala. On Friday we make Kiddush and we say Vayachal Elohim Bayom Hashvi'i, and God finished or concluded on the seventh day, as the seventh day came. That word kal is there again, yachal, kalya. What does that word mean? We'll soon get to that. In a spiritual sense, Tarmudai refers to those who rebel against the kingdom of heaven. Oh, these are people who seem like gathering wood. But when they were roaming the streets at nighttime in darkness, they represent dark forces. Also, the word Talmud is made up of the same Hebrew letters as Moredet, which means rebel. So the people of Talmud, maybe unconsciously, had a city or a region that was called in the Hebrew words, which contained the same Hebrew words as rebel, as a rebel. These Talmudai remain in the market. They don't go home. They're sitting around in the marketplace. Remember, they're trying to sell wood. The realm of public domain and peaks of separation. Look at footnote 109. Literally, the domain of the many, the public domain, out there in the marketplace. In other words, Talmudai, in a deeper sense, refers to a people who deny the omnipotence and omniscience of one God, and who instead maintain that the world is a domain of the many, controlled by many different forces, God forbid. These are the people who say, who are you to tell me what to do? I'll do what I want to do. Everyone can do what they feel like. If it feels right, if it feels good, you go ahead and do it. They had a story on one of these websites this morning about a little boy who felt he was a woman. And at the age of 21 decided to undergo that whole process and go through the whole change, the gender, whatever they call it. Anyway, and now he supposedly looks like a woman. I can't say he became a woman, because how do you become a woman? He physically took on the appearance of a woman, met a man, a firefighter, fell in love, got married, and was married for 4 years. And 4 years later, he was killed in a fire, by fighting a fire. And she felt she would never find love again. And then she went to some kind of a party, instantly fell in love with this guy, but they wouldn't get one. They didn't let him get married in Texas. They wouldn't let him get married because her birth certificate had said him, or whatever it was. This guy has 2 children from a previous marriage. And so the story ended up by saying, how beautiful of a story. Now real pure love has now blossomed over here, and they have the kid. The final part of the story is these kids. So they have this little girl who might be 10 or 11. I think anyone should be able to marry whoever they want to marry. Whatever feels right to someone should be respected. Something like that. Now that is, feelings are very personal. It's true. And feelings are, but you can do anything you feel like. Oh, we've went through this before. But if you feel like marrying your dog, they'll throw you into jail. And if you feel like marrying your teacher, they'll do the same thing. And if you feel like marrying your sister or your mother or your daughter, you will be in that trouble as well. Because feelings don't necessarily control what happens, you see? And again, I'm not commenting on the actual story. I'm just talking about the end piece over here. Whatever it feels like. Feelings do not govern. Feelings are personal. So if I feel like I want to go from here to there, you know what? You'll have to pass it by those who are involved. So if I want to go to Israel, I have to make sure that I have my wife's permission. I have to make sure that everything is taken care of at home. I hope. And I have to make sure that they want me in Israel, and that I have legal ability to get into Israel, and I have the means to get back. I mean, there's a lot of things that I have to do, even though I feel like it. Feelings don't necessarily govern. It shouldn't be governing anything. Feelings should drive a person, but not necessarily does it say, because I feel something, therefore I should do it. Talmudai people say, it's a public domain. We can do what we want. Of course, we're not talking about, if you want to translate it into the actual people who are gathering wood and sticks. It doesn't necessarily mean that these people are bad people. We're not talking about the people now. We're talking about the deeper meaning behind these words and names which mean nothing to us today. What then is the Talmud teaching? It's leaving us for all time, is that there are elements in this world that are dark elements. They roam around at night and they scream, or they roam around in darkness and they scream, it's a public domain, I can do what I want. They remain in the marketplace when everyone else isn't there. In other words, they're saying, we will recreate this concept when it's dark, and darkness means that people go to a light place. At home, we are creatures of the dark. So they represent, not that they were necessarily, but they represent in a spiritual sense rebels who don't care about this private God with singular, public, everybody can do whatever they want. And the Hanukkah lights caused the feet of the Talmudai to be kalya. That's that word there, kalya, to be finished, which can be explained in two ways. A, the light of the Hanukkah lamps is mechala, or destroys, nullifies the feet of the Talmudai. In other words, it takes the rebels and it says, get out of the streets, boy, get to some light and stop rebelling. You know, when darkness comes out, the mice start to play and the criminals start running around because it's hidden. That's what they're doing. Get out of the streets. We light up the streets and say here, bring the light into even the darkest elements. And B, the light of the Hanukkah lamps causes a kilyon, the same word kalya, which means a yearning for divinity. Now you know why the bride is called a kala. Doesn't mean because she's finished, but it means because there's a yearning involved. There's a desire. There's a coming together. As we were dealing with it in Douglasville a couple months ago. Even within the feet of the Talmudai, that's what the Talmud says, the feet of the Talmudai, means when their legs carry them back in, but it talks about the feet because the feet are the lowest elements of a person, such that even the rebels will reach the level of kalot hanefesh, or an ecstatic yearning of the soul for divinity. So the Hanukkah lamps not just get rid of the darkness, but they cause even the rebels, even the dark elements, to somehow find within them the deeper, the yechida, the transcendent, the deepest level, the oil level within the person. So that should come out, and they should not just cease being rebels, but they should have this longing and yearning to godliness. So Hanukkah touches, that's why it's darkness. In the temple's concept was to bring light to the whole world. But the Hanukkah is not just to bring to the whole world, but even to illuminate the darkest elements, the rebels at night. And their feet, the lowest of the low, should be illuminated and inspired by the beautiful candles and beautiful lights and lamps of the menorah. That does it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.